Hey, this is Nate Levan, DuPont Pioneer Field Agronomist here in North Central Iowa again. Hey, talking about series number 2 or video number 2 on our cover crop series. Today we're going to talk a little bit about species selection. And in the first video we talked about some of the benefits, soil health, structure, some of the nutrient scavenging ability of some of these cover crops. Today we're going to talk about, all right, you've made the selection, we're going to do it. Now which one are you going to choose? And for me, when we think about that, it comes into kind of two camps. And the first camp is, hey, as part of my management style, I'm probably not going to be able to manage it and terminate it like we did here on this cereal rye here in the springtime. I want my cover crop to actually winter kill. And when we think about that, the two species that I look at here for the north central part of Iowa, and really in general across the Midwest, I look at oats and then something like a tillage radish. And when we think about oats, that's kind of that cleanup crop or that nice nutrient scavenging crop. It establishes really nice in the fall. I would say if you're going to put it on here into standing corn stalks or fly it on or possibly have an interseeder, this is typically one that we need to get on a little earlier so it gets time to establish and possibly get up to, probably 12 inches, maybe up to about boot high in the fall. Depending on the situation, oats will do that very well at about a bushel an acre. Sometimes you can get away with a little bit less. And the next one is something that Zach talked a little bit about the 2013, when he talked about cover crops in 2012 and 2013, guys really had these huge tillage radishes. These were those big daikon radishes that were about 12, 18 inches deep, really thick. You're probably in a given year using them for cover crops are not gonna see that. You might be able to get some of the benefits if you're talking about maybe a silage or seed corn, get a little bit bigger growth. But most time tillage radishes, if you're in that same seeding window as oats, are gonna get maybe about as big as your thumb, maybe as big as your pinky. Gonna have a nice long taproot. But the nice thing about tillage radishes is if you're going into, let's say, a corn on corn situation, it gives you some diversity. It gives you a non-gracious type of a plant to give you a little bit of diversity and not have so much of that nitrogen tie up maybe in the spring that we do with grass crops. So those are the ones that are likely going to winter kill here in northern Iowa. And I guess the next one, as we move across here, when we're talking about cereal rye or possibly some of the clovers, I'm going to look at this one, and this happens to be a field of cereal rye. You can see this one's over my boot. It's actually starting to head out a little bit. You're actually talking about cereal rye probably being one of the most diverse and most efficient crops here in the northern part of the state when it comes to establishment. You can probably get it established here. If we actually look up in the northern part of the state, you can probably see this into the middle of October, maybe even into late October. With cereal rye, you're going to get nice establishment in a wide variety of conditions. That's heavier soils, that's lighter soils. It does do really well when drilled, but it also can be flown on. It's a nice heavy dense seed that can get good distribution when we're talking about flying it on in the fall. Okay, but you are going to have to consider this is something in the springtime. You're going to have to think about termination, whether it be with something like a glyphosate earlier in the spring to make sure that this plant does die before you interseed the crop, or you're going to have to consider something like seeding green directly into that cover. And then last, I'm going to hit the clovers. This happens to be crimson clover. Typically here in my area, clovers have limited utility just because we don't get the establishment that we do with some of these others. The benefits that you get from clovers can be really good if they're seeded earlier, inoculated. You get some of that nitrogen fixing capacity. But clovers here in general, if you're going to do a late season application, they're going to be hard to see a perceived benefit and a lot of growth later in the season. So if you do get kind of these basics, I would say most guys start out thinking about oats, cereal rye, tillage radishes are good easy ones to start out with. And then of course there's a ton of information on mixes, and when you get into that next third, fourth, fifth, maybe sixth year getting into cover crops, you'll have a little bit more experience, know how you want to manage them, and really you can kind of diversify. But this is where I'm going to start on species selection for most of my cover crop discussions. If you have any more questions, contact your local DuPont Pioneer sales agency or sales representative.